Gentlemen, good to see you. Good to see you. And again, we're going to have a seat. We're going to do kind of the same format. I've got some questions, and then time permitting, we'll open it up to you all. So let me start with you, Jake, and just tell us a little bit about what that means to be leading the sustainability program for DOE.
Thank you, Lenny. I'm probably a unique animal within the, I guess, federal IT community in the sense that my focus is on IT sustainability. Energy efficiency is in IT. And most of the energy efficiency sides, as Jay pointed out this morning, are kind of on the facility side. But there are, obviously with the electronic stewardship requirements, there's, and what some of the industry is doing with respect to new equipment that's more energy efficient. The Department of Energy decided when both the FDCCI effort came out, and at around the same time, the Executive Order 13514 came out on sustainability, that here was an opportunity to, they were complementary, to take a focus here, a little different perspective. And I was basically assigned as the lead here is to let's look at our data centers from a holistic view and look at it from sustainability in the sense of both facilities and the IT. So I was put in that position, and that's kind of where we both look at our strategic sustainability performance plan and our FDCCI, and take the path of focusing on energy efficiency, and as we proceed with trying to execute both the plans on sustainability across the entire department and the data center consolidation.
And you say you were put in that position, so my question is, are you happy that you were put in that position, or are you feeling like a victim right now?
Yes, actually I volunteered. I mean, I saw that this was an excellent opportunity. I have I guess my background has been in IT, mostly operations. I've been with the Department of Energy for about 16 years now. I was the IT director for what was the Yucca Mountain project, which I'm actually stationed in Las Vegas. And that was where they're looking to bury all the high-level nuclear waste. And I guess that the funding on that stopped, so I took the opportunity to come into with the OCIO and focus on the aspects of IT sustainability.
So that's what they really mean when they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. They're talking about nuclear waste. I thought they were. Okay. And Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your engagement is, I guess particularly with DOD and your position at MITRE, and a little bit about your background, just so everybody knows who you are.
Thank you, Lenny. I'm a retired Air Force. I spent 17 years in the Air Force modeling human behavior and designing command and control centers. Many of you recognize those as data centers. I worked, of course, 5 years in missile operations, so I have a little operations background. And I've been working with MITRE as an enterprise architect. Many of the projects I worked on, NORAD, Joint STARS, AWACS, the Seawolf submarine, I cut my teeth on building the tools that we use today in enterprise architecting, so I kind of backed into enterprise architecting. I worked also some projects on data center consolidation with the Post Office, with Veterans Affairs, with the State Department, and with HealthNet TRICARE for the North Region. Currently, my assignment is to the Deputy Management Office of the Air Force. I am the lead for the business enterprise architecture, and also for the DoD CIO as the Joint Information Environment Enterprise Architect. And I lead both those efforts at this time, which, if you look at both of them, they're all about consolidation.
Yeah, great. So let me come back to you, Jake. When we talk about sustainability, what are you seeing as sort of the goals of the program? Are there specific either metrics or directives that are sort of underlying this idea of what sustainability entails and the goals of the program?
Well, yes, the goals both in trying to meet with this administration as they set for greenhouse gas reductions, energy reductions. Obviously, that's a significant goal that complements and contributes to the overall department's goals. And as we're probably well aware that probably the biggest plug load in federal facilities is related to IT equipment. So this was, again, an opportunity to try to figure out, where we might be able to save energy with either new equipment or consolidation of infrastructure and aspects of that. So by integrating the two initiatives, that we're able to, be able to support that. It's definitely a challenge. I mean, as Jay was pointing out, and Bernie was, mentioning, we've had some challenges with respect to being able to identify all of the data centers. It was a little moving target there, and as far as the definition, I have to hand it to OMB as their focus on looking, continuing with the holistic approach here, because most of it in IT is just IT and separate from the facilities, but they do include all aspects of the facility in the sense of energy consumption is included as far as the metrics and how we're measuring. So by taking that holistic approach, we're able to understand what's the total cost, to the each of the departments and the agencies. Even though maybe on the IT side, we don't pay the electric bill, so we're not necessarily incentivized, per se, to be energy efficient. But by continuing to look at the total cost and including such as energy consumption as a metric that's as part of the calculation, does take the right approach, the holistic approach to focus there.
So let me ask you something about, so when you're looking at energy consumption in a data center, to what extent are you mapping that to actual needs, right? There's the raw number of this much is consumed here and this much is consumed there, but there's a reason that consumption is going on, and it's because there are some compute or storage workloads involved. So to what extent do you sort of contextualize those numbers, and to what extent do you just say, wow, there's a lot of energy being sucked up here and we've got to drive it down? Can you talk at all about how you get visibility into consumption, not just as raw statistics, but sort of, is there any granularity to it? Or?
Correct. Well, as part of the challenges that we had when going out there and collecting this data, we do, the Department of Energy has an organization that's called the Federal Energy Management Program. And they help, and look at all aspects of energy efficiency and across the federal government, and be able to help other agencies. And so that's one of the first doors they knocked on, and saying, what kind of tools do you have to help us here as far as being able to figure this out? And they had some capabilities that we've been able to take advantage of and continue to promote, which we call our data center profiling tool. So it allows data center managers to be able to, collect the information, the data, be able to come with recommendations as far as what they can do, to begin saving, some projects they may be able to save energy, speaks to the hot, cold aisle, configuration, the air containment, air management. So it gives again, kind of a holistic view and recommendations for, to improve. What I did like to hear from Jay, and it's, and this is a challenge that we've all faced, and it's encouraging to hear that it's moving forward, is the DCIM. Because that was a main area that we're trying to get both the metering, using the right tools to do, for the modeling, and then, once you have that information data, be able to actually manage your data center better and understand those. So those are the areas in which are really strong.
Yeah, so that's what I want to ask you about, which is, the first one is, how do you do the fact finding? Because again, Bernie also talked about sort of doing fact-based stuff. And then once we have those facts, I'm curious, what have you found to be the best practices, the specific technologies, the specific tools to then actually realize savings? I mean, is it juggling machines so that you have a more even load? Is it specifying new types of hardware? Are there any particular, again, to get a little bit granular about it, techniques, tools, technologies that you're seeing enable us to realize the savings once we've done the fact finding and realize there's probably something we can cut down here?
Well, the DCIM tools that are out there, and we take the opportunity to try to look at some of our different sites, be able to implement as pilots to see where they can be effective, and we found that it's getting the collaboration and the partnership with IT and the facility side, so that here you're trying to convince an IT professional that here's a new tool, that's going to save energy, but it's going to require you to, to actually to spend some time and effort. So what's in it for them in the sense of where are the savings? I mean, it's a matter of budget. So through that collaboration, we're able to actually capitalize on some of the energy savings associated with having IT be able to use these tools and have better management. It even supports some aspects of security, understanding what's actually going on within your data center, and then each of those two organizations collaborating and then sharing the expense associated with being able to do that.
Going to ask you a couple more, Jake, before I get to some questions I want to ask you, Mike. What about savings in terms of moving workloads either into the cloud, like Jay was talking about, or colo facilities? To what extent is that like a basic tactic for changing energy consumption on a workload, because there's economies of scale available from a service provider that we can't achieve internally?
We believe that's, and I think the several years back, the administration, OMB, issued the Cloud First policy. That was a part of the push there, and we truly believe that that's a smart move. As we look at even our assets and our applications within the data center we have now, being able to identify which and how we might be able to move those, into a cloud environment. Part of the idea here is that we don't want to, this is going to be a sizable investment and again, a kind of a challenge here to improve the energy efficiency of a data center. So as we look at our data centers, we want to, and size it correctly as to what assets really, need to stay, and what assets can we start to look to the, to the cloud. And as Jay said, it's not, it's not one or the other in a sense. It is a hybrid.
Right.
There will be assets that stay. We will look to then, keep our footprint to a minimum, focus on the improving the data center and the operation of it and the energy efficiency associated with that, and then look to move the as much as we can into the to the cloud.
Are there some particular, though, obstacles that you think that you see agencies encountering when they realize, somebody internally realizes this is the smart move? And what are those obstacles? How do you overcome them?
It is a culture change. I mean, if as most people hear about being associated with federal IT, it's been a very decentralized way to operate. And so there's, you still have your server huggers, and they that they're, and it's local, in many cases. So our focus has been on the taking a look at where the IT commodity services are, things in which, to make that initial bridge and be able to do that is, what can we do, and as far as the standard IT commodity services that we might be able to, that we can move to the cloud, other agencies already taken advantage of, and then be able to demonstrate that the mission can be, you're not impacting the mission, you're actually complementing the mission, and you're doing it at a better cost.
Gotcha. So I have to ask you one more question in regards to that, which is, can you comment at all at ESPCs as a vehicle by which we do that engagement with a service provider, so that we don't have to take budget, et cetera, out to do that? Can you comment on that?
Well, when I accepted the invitation, I thought I'd have the opportunity to come here and kind of give some, a fair explanation of where we are with our ESPC project and the idea of promoting its use, and as far as a possible data center consolidation or data center optimization. I guess we're still waiting for that. But the aspects of the ESPC, and we started this about 2 years ago, was to, we know we're all, the financial situation within the government is such that how do you make a major transformation of your IT infrastructure and how you operate? We have with the user community here, it's a mobile environment, and right now, the way we're currently, situated here, particularly if you're focused on IT commodity services, is that it's a major transformation is going to be required. So, and it comes at a cost. So we looked at the opportunity of using an energy savings performance contract to look at our corporate systems and applications and data centers that support them, and our IT commodity services, and by being able to, it's a public-private partnership, by having their financing up front, then being able to just then use the savings associated with the project to pay it back over time. We thought that that was an interesting proof of concept, and we moved forward on that. We're quite anxious to actually issue the task order if possible, and move forward there. The return on the investment looks good. Get the money that the industry is able to provide, and the guaranteed savings associated with it. Now, even though it's considered an energy savings performance contract, the other aspect is we get to take advantage of the energy savings to help pay for that investment.
Right.
But I will tell you, and it's one in which we knew, kind of from the get-go, that the true savings are in your operations and maintenance, and we're seeing a large percentage of that as far as where we achieve the savings there.
The two really go hand in hand. But can you comment at all on any obstacles to OMB's involvement with ESPCs?
Actually, no, I'm not at liberty to,
Okay.
in a position to be able to comment. We are hopeful that, that it will get resolved and we can move forward on it. We think it'd be an excellent vehicle for a lot of other federal agencies to consider.
Absolutely, absolutely. Had to ask the question. Mike, I want to ask you some questions. So in your engagement in the DoD environment, what are you seeing as kind of the primary challenges? I guess Bernie says I have to say opportunities, but he's not on the stage right now. So I'm going to go ahead and say challenges, obstacles with data center consolidation that you've encountered.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to preface my comments by saying I'm not speaking for the Air Force and I'm not speaking for DoD. This is Mike McFerrin, 30 years of doing this plus, and this is what I've seen over a wide variety of opportunities. I pretty much bucket them into two parts. One, I'm going to tell you things that are mom and apple pie, okay? You're going to know these things. Politics. Everybody's got their piece of the pie they don't want to give up. You got change management. How many of you have probably taken a class or read a book on change management? Okay? That's almost standard now for anybody to do it. Lack of planning. I don't know how many efforts I've walked into and I say, where is your IMS, Integrated Master Schedule? And they look at me with a blank stare. I said, do you have Microsoft Project? And they look at me with a blank stare. Communications. You start something like this, the best way to handle the change management is with communications. Keep telling people, what is your goal? What is your success rate or state of success? And tell them what you're doing before you do it. You tell them why you're doing it, and you tell them what you did. The 3 rules of giving a good military brief. Number one, there is no baseline out there. Has anybody ever measured the baseline on your data center? Do you know how many CPUs you got running? Do you know how much data is flowing through it? Do you know how much bandwidth you're using? Do you know how much downtime you have across the entire facility and across each rack, across each server? How many users do you have per day, per hour, per minute? Okay? Get that baseline down. That's going to be extremely important. No metrics. People don't know what your metrics are. You say, I'm going to go and consolidate these data centers, but what's your success criteria? How do you know when you're done? All right? And unreal ROI expectations from leadership. You got to manage up. You got to make sure that they understand. They hear average of 30% savings, and they only get 28. Chances are you're going to get called in on the carpet. Where's my other 2%? Okay? So that's one bucket. The other bucket is more cultural. I don't know how many projects I've gone into where people have said, oh, it's all about taking this server from this location and putting it over here. Okay? Or it's network. I'm going to go from 15 different ISPs down to 2, and we're going to have dual connections. Or they're going to talk about applications. I want to reduce my number of applications, or I want to reduce my data. I want to start sharing data across. And I say that's the wrong focus. When you go into a consolidation, you need to know what is the line or lines of business that data center is supporting. That's going to be what you actually move, is that support for that line of business. What you leave behind is the stuff you don't do anymore. Okay, so if we have applications that tell you how to make buggy whips, we don't do those anymore. You set those aside and you mothball them. And you move the hardware and software required to provide the service of what you do today. So those are the two areas that I see are the difficulties.
So the buggy whip application. To some extent, what you're saying is that before you want to look at infrastructure metrics, or maybe along with them, the first thing is to get a look at application rationalization. Unless I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, you're kind of starting there.
Yeah, kind of starting there. What are the capabilities that you want to be able to do? Okay, and that means you don't go talk to the IT folks. You go talk to the people who are actually doing your organization's business. I go talk to commanders. I go talk to pilots. I go talk to captains on ships. I go talk to tank commanders. Okay? What is it you're trying to do? What data do you need? When do you need it? It was really interesting when I did the NORAD back in '88. NORAD was doing this huge rebuild of the inside of the Cheyenne Mountain. And I walk in and they asked me to do the human factors engineering on it and evaluate their current design. Well, the first thing I said is, what do you do in this facility? They had no clue. So we did what I called at that time a data analysis, and identified there's only one decision that the 4-star makes. Okay? And once he makes that decision, he has a very set process he has to follow in communications. There are 12 decisions that he and his staff make in the command center. The other 81 decisions are pushed out to the work centers. Once we discovered that, it was real easy. What information does the commander need to make his one decision? What does his staff need to make those 12 decisions? And then what applications and information do the work centers make? And now we could start laying out where those applications go, who needs what bandwidth, who needs what data, who needs what rate of performance. And you can get your capabilities that way. Just about everything you do, whether it's enrolling somebody at a national park to get them a camping space, or whether it's working on budgets or whatever, there is a process you follow. Find out what that process is, find out what your endpoints are, map it against your time frames. You know, most of government is done on an annual basis. So you can start saying, when I need information, where, what, and start looking at your probability distribution curves of your performance requirements.
So it's interesting. What I hear you saying is sort of, and this fits in with, by the way, the classic definition of what an enterprise architect is. Sometimes people think an enterprise architect is an architect of a data center and IT infrastructure. Technically, as we speak now, enterprise architect is actually somebody who does what you do, which is to look at the business process. And then it sounds to me like what you're saying.
We also do the IT too.
Well, yes, but starting from there, I think what I hear you saying is it's not just application rationalization in the sense of sort of which ones do we need and which ones don't we need, but it's also looking at each application and then understanding its workload in terms of capacity, in terms of downtime, is it tier 1, 2, or 3, and in terms of performance requirements, and really taking that so that you understand what your target state has to be, as opposed to just looking at some raw numbers. Is that a decent reinterpretation of what you said?
That's a decent reinterpretation. We have a methodology we follow. We identify what is the capabilities you want. We want to put the metrics against those capabilities, and what are the thresholds you want to achieve.
Right.
Then we identify the activity that are going to do that, and the processes, and then from those processes, what skilled people and what tools and resources you need to actually run that process to achieve that activity, to achieve that performance, and say you have that capability.
But somewhere between, as you're trying to accommodate these very specific set of application workloads, which have some specificity to them in terms of the desired state of target infrastructure, you also have this desire for the kind of uniformity we've been talking about by which you obtain economies of scale. So can you give us some sense of, at least in your own personal opinion, not speaking for any agency or large demographic group, domestically or otherwise, how it is that you believe we best balance, again, the drive for uniformity, which delivers us efficiency in terms of economies of scale, and the fact that there is variability in the application workloads that any agency needs?
Well,
It's a deep metaphysical question that I know has been grappled with since the time of Plato and Socrates, but
it has gone down that far. Those of you that have been following business process reengineering, business process improvement, Michael Hammer, the Toyota Way, lean engineering, Six Sigma, will know that the core, what they're trying to do is find commonalities. Okay? What is the different pieces of process that are common, you use the same applications or the same tools or the same bandwidth requirements. And you start looking at, okay, I use that here. Now I look at my next process. Ooh, I use it here also. And you can start layering these up across all your processes, and you can start saying, oh, I can get some leverage here by having a commodity buy, or I can bring all my licenses together that have been bought over a variety of places and get them back to one license for all this use. I could also say, this is a service, depending upon access requirements, performance requirements, and security requirements, that I could move outside to a cloud environment. So that is one of the approaches you can take to start looking at how you split off and do standardization and distribution. And one of the big things that we work very closely in command and control is where do you do centralization, where you do decentralization, and running that back and forth against threats, physical threats, et cetera.
yeah. So that's great. By the way, the way you've structured this idea of the analysis and mapping and finding the commonalities, again, not just in sort of a infrastructure level, but really having it driven by what is it that the business needs to do. Jake, you want to comment on that too?
Sure, Lenny. Within the Department of Energy, we've the OCIO in concert and collaboration with the NNSA, our nuclear security agency. We basically tried to, or proceeding with an adoption similar to what you're saying there, and both an understanding of, we got a diverse mission and the various different organizations. So what we've taken is created this thing, well, I think we call it the right path, but being able to set up an infrastructure that's going to be in the cloud and be able to allow the other agencies, other sites that perform the mission. It's going to have all the sets for security, be able to provision what they need, and what they determine at the sites as what makes sense for them to move into the cloud versus what they need to keep on site and operate within their facility. So the idea there is to set up that infrastructure, that service per se, and then allow them, the ones that architect and to make those determinations, understand their workloads and where they need to have it as to where they can take advantage of getting the services from us internally, in the sense of, that they're able to know that's already certified, it meets all the security standards, but it's a service in which they manage, and they call it your cloud, in the sense that they manage that service there from their location. We're just being a provider of that service.
Yeah. I'm going to ask one more, and then maybe we could take some questions from the group here. It sounds to me what you're describing there is really an internal service catalog.
Yes.
And are you seeing, is there any progress being made in actually sort of formalizing? You seem to be saying, Mike, are you seeing kind of that same kind of model, or that there are in fact agencies creating internal service catalogs?
Yes, they are in certain areas.
Right.
I do know that the Air Force in its AOC has a service catalog.
Right.
So all 14 AOCs pull from that set of services. I know the DoD has set up enterprise-wide services for collaboration, communications, storage, information sharing, et cetera, a whole variety of them. How ubiquitous they are across the infrastructure is yet to be developed.
Yeah. I really like, though, this idea of thinking in terms of, of consolidation and all this power and cooling and kind of nitty-gritty box and hardware stuff, really aligning with this higher level view of understanding services and creating a service catalog, right? We wouldn't always think, at least not in my business, of talking about service catalogs in the same sentence with PDUs. And yet there's sort of a connection between this consolidation of one and the other. We've got some time, so I think there may be some questions out here. I'm going to encourage, maybe you had a question before for Bernie we didn't get to. You can ask these guys because they're also involved in a similar effort. And again, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Just let us know who you are so that we have some context. And I think we're bringing a mic over to you. So,
Bob Abiskin from ITAC. So I've done a bunch of studies in this arena, and so I note that NSA built a data center, pretty good data center in Utah, for $1.9 billion. Social Security built a pretty good data center, highly efficient, in Maryland for $1.5 billion. So how are you going to afford that? If I start going across a lot of agencies, maybe I'm going to approach $1 trillion, trying to build data centers like I was a shoe cobbler, maybe setting some standards. When today I can buy manufactured data centers at a very significant cost reduction. And I go out to a data center in Sterling, and they have a Pew, and Pew, if you don't know what it means, is energy efficiency, of 1.5. National average is about 2.5. I suspect the DoD is way above that. And so we are a major polluter in terms of carbon. In this,
so you're going to form a question for these guys?
the question is,
that's what I want to know.
How are you going to do this? I mean, you talked a little bit about the money, but the size of the money to do this is enormous. Mm-hmm. And getting to a good energy efficient ratio. Mm-hmm. How are you going to get there?
Okay,
you can't
so
do that. You can't.
That's a great question.
So data center.
So I'm gonna break down the first one. So how are you looking at the metrics for efficiency, for example, and how much spending do you think it really has to go on? Or do you see, again, the vehicle of the ESPC as a way of doing some of this without having to do huge capital expenditures?
Well, I guess just to answer the question the government now has identified certain standards in which the expectation for the federal data centers to meet with respect to both operational and efficiency and energy efficiency. Within the executive order and the requirements that they're identifying there, they're setting a PUE, and I think they initially set it like 1.4, which is very aggressive. Mm-hmm. That may be changed to like maybe a 1.6. Do you apply that across the board? I mean, well, it may not make sense there. And again, that's where we look at some of the tools we have is that, you know, to bring a data center to that level of energy efficiency requires a significant investment. Do you make that investment in all your data centers, or do you identify those in which will be your consolidation hubs to be able, and where you can make that investment then, and then be able to then start consolidating your infrastructure and your services with the idea of closing the data centers. So there are some aggressive goals that are being required. Those are being, tracked by the administration to make, ensure that the new data center designs are are such that they should be able to meet those. The new definition of a core data center, where there's a focus of those data centers being able to focus on ensuring that they do the operational and energy efficiencies that are associated with meeting those goals. So the right things are being done as far as identifying how we should focus and improve on there. So the government's spending the money in the right place to be efficient and provide the services needed.
Mike, do you want to comment at all on what you heard there being uncovered? Yeah.
I can tell you that in the JIE, the Joint Information Environment, we're looking at well over 1,000 data centers, and we're trying to boil it down to core data centers and service mission-specific data centers. They're looking globally, probably around 11 or 12 core data centers from 1,000, and probably maybe numbers escape me, but we're talking about a couple of dozen IPNs per service. Each base will be responsible for its own land, et cetera. So we're not building anything new. We're trying to repurpose what we already have. Those facilities that are too old, have improper cooling or insufficient cooling, or have small space and can't find extensions, they're being the ones that are being phased out. So as far as I know, and again, this is me talking, not DOD talking, they're not spending any new money on new data centers. We're trying to repurpose what we have. As Jay mentioned, we believe that in the savings in new technologies and taking these smaller, more compact, more uniform servers, the new data technologies, et cetera, we're going to be able to put in quite a bit more performance in the same footprint.
One other comment, if I may, Lenny.
Sure.
Through the FDCCI effort and the task force that we've set up there, as we collect this information in the data centers, there is a strong promotion of, you may have excess capacity, floor space that you have, and without having equipment in that floor space, then your data center may not be all that efficient. So rather than having to build another server room or data center, the idea there is that if there's agencies that have data center that has excess capacity, they have established some service level agreements or operational level agreements, then we can have shared service. We can say, hey, we can support other agencies if they're interested in putting their equipment here. So that information now is beginning to be shared between the federal agencies and see where there might be opportunities to take advantage of capacity that might be available.
Great. Let's do one more. We'll get to end the session, and then we'll have to take some more questions also in the second part of our session. But go ahead. Why don't you let us know who you are, ask a brief question, and we'll give you a brief answer.
All right, Dwight Buse from Task. We're working on using cloud computing and trying to figure out how to fund a fee-for-service type arrangement. Have you folks worked on that, certainly for the Department of Energy and other things like that, how that would get budgeted so that you can get these services and offload some of your data centers into the cloud?
Yes, we are. I'm not sure I can go into much detail on that because we have another team that's kind of focused on that as we stand up those services and make those services priced at a very competitive rate. So we don't require. I mean, this is one of those build it and we have to end up basically selling it. Be competitive so that whether they get the services from us or they get them external. Well, we want to make sure the pricing is there, for that, such that it's attractive to them.
Again, if we have more questions, we'll have more of a Q&A session after the break. Mike, I just want to give you opportunity. Any last word, a minute or so you want to share with anybody that we haven't gotten to yet?
No, I just want to make sure that you recognize the analysis that I'm talking about is not simple. It does take some time. It takes some real get out of the data center, go talk to your operators, your users, which sometimes we shortcut. Other than that, I want to thank Information Week and HP and Siemens for inviting me.
Yep. And anything you want to share, Jacob, before I wrap up?
Yes, Lee, I would like to make one more plug here for, you know, we mentioned data center managers. Within the Department of Energy, we're identifying, and I think it's been promoted through the Federal Energy Management Program, what they considered a data center energy practitioner. And they even have a certification that's out there, you know, for that, where that, you know, that is the data center manager, but he's not just, you know, managing where the, you know, the racks are and the IT equipment, but is taking the holistic view or managing the entire facility to understand, you know, where the workloads are, where the equipment is, and ensuring the, you know, that both the energy efficiency of that facility is being maintained. So that's something, and I think if you go like on FIMP.com or .gov,
Okay.
you might be able to find some of the resources that they have there that the FIMP offers. And
Great.
again, thank you for Siemens and InfoWeek for the opportunity.